Have you ever stopped to consider how technology has changed our lives? It wasn't too long ago that if you wanted to travel from one end of the country to the other, you either had to ride horseback or you walked or maybe caught a wagon train, and then technology advanced and we got the train, and then they was able to cross the continental United States. They're at Promontory Point when the two railheads met together. Anybody remember that? Yeah, Mike, you remember that, don't you? Technology just changes everything. I mean, think about how we communicate today. There was a time that communication was only done by writing a letter. Today we have email. You can write a letter, you can type a letter today, and in 3-4 seconds, the person on the other side of the planet can get your letter. Before, you'd write a letter and you'd have to send it with somebody or put it on the Pony Express or something like that. Technology has radically changed everything. And I think letter writing is one of those things that has unfortunately went by the wayside. When's the last time you even wrote a letter? Think about that. I know when many of you were younger, I mean, that was a common process to write a letter and put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it and mail it. And often whenever you'd mail something, didn't you usually have a reason for writing? I mean, today, if you write a letter to somebody, it's more likely or not, it's probably at Christmas, and it's one of those form letters. Anybody do that? You write what's happened in the past year about with me and all my family, and then you kind of photocopy it and put it in an envelope and mail it around. Oh, you text it? Is that what you do? You text? Millennials. Well, Paul, he wrote several letters to the churches that he established there in Asia Minor. And when Paul writes a letter to a church, it's usually because there's some sort of issue in that church. It's kind of a form of discipline, if you will, or he's addressing something, some need or some question. I'm ringing a little bit, but the church at Philippi is a little bit different. The church of Philippi really doesn't have any big pressing issue that needs to be addressed. Paul does bring up some things that he wants them to be aware of, and we've already kind of touched on those things. But this church at Philippi is different. He loves them, and they love him, and that's obvious that they love him back. And there is a reason he writes them this letter, though. And this letter was written to them in response to a financial gift that was sent to him while he's in prison. They had taken one of their church members and they had gathered some communal pot, if you will, just took up an offering for Paul. And they sent it back to him with one of their church members. And so Paul actually responds to that financial gift. This is a letter of gratitude to them. Thanks for the financial gift. But as he's writing this letter, he takes the opportunity here and he sees this current situation as an opportunity for a teaching point. And so he encourages them in perseverance and unity and humility. The whole letter, though, is written to them just encouraging them to remain joyful. That's kind of where we start today. Look at Philippians chapter 4. We're only going to deal with 3 verses. Philippians chapter 4, and we will start with verse 10. Philippians 4:10. How I praise the Lord that you are concerned about me again. I know that you've always been concerned for me, but you didn't have the chance to help me. Not that I was ever in need, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I've learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it is with a full stomach or an empty, or with plenty or little. For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. So I want to take you back to verse 10. Look at verse 10 again where we started. Here we see Paul is addressing this particular gift as the reason why he writes the letter. He tells them, I'm grateful for the gift. Thank you for your concern. But, I mean, if you look at and dive down into it a little bit and understand what he's saying, he's not rejoicing for the gift itself. He appreciates the gift. But it's almost as if he's saying, thank you, but here's the reason why I'm deriving so much joy from the gift. It's because it shows that you have a deep love for me and you're still concerned for me. In Paul's eyes, this is an unsolicited act of kindness, and it's a testament to their spiritual maturity. We talked last week about some key markers in the lives of a Christian. What are some things that a spiritually mature Christian should be marked by? And I think Paul sees this gift and he's saying, here's another way that you are proving to me that you're growing in your faith. You heard that I have a need, and then you gave willingly out of love. And it's a testament to your relationship with the Lord and your commitment to the gospel. But please don't misinterpret my joy. That's what he's saying. Don't misinterpret my joy. The gift is appreciated. But you need to know that my situation here, which, remember, he's in prison, shackled to a Roman guard, somewhere in Rome. He's saying, my situation is tenable. It's almost as if he's saying, I kind of the kid vernacular here, I'm good. Appreciate you, I'm good. Thanks for the gift. It will be used. It was needed, but you didn't have to do it because I'm good. You know, see, this is Paul. For Paul, that gift is another opportunity for him to use it as a model within the facet of this diamond called spiritual maturity. Contentment is another facet, another marker of the spiritually mature believer. Contentment, you know what that means. Sure you do. It means that you are satisfied with what you have. You're satisfied with where you're at. You're satisfied with what you're doing, where you're going, who you're with. That's what it means to be content. My guess today is that many of our older members is probably in a place of contentment in life. But when you're younger, contentment can be rampant. I want you to see a few things about it. If you've got your study sheet there, look at number 1. First thing that we see in this section here, that Paul says that contentment must be learned. Contentment, that complete inner satisfaction. Content, that word content actually means to be contained. Have you ever been on vacation to one of those all-inclusive resorts? Me neither. No, whenever I was in high school, I actually went to one. And the neat thing about them is when you go to those all-inclusive resorts or you go to an all-inclusive cruise, that's what all-inclusive means, you don't worry about anything. Everything you need will be given to you. One cost, eat as much as you like. One cost, there's all kinds of things that you can do down at the beach, any kind of activity, any kind of food, anything that this resort offers, it's all included. That's what it means to be content. I don't need anything from the outside. You understand my metaphor, hopefully? Okay, good. But as we think about where Paul is and what Paul's going to, I don't know about you, but I come away and say, how in the world could he be content in his situation? I mean, after everything he's went through, if you go back to the beginning of his life, he's simply walking down the road and he's blinded. And he's blind for a long time, and then he finally regains his sight and he begins to follow Jesus. And every time he turns around, somebody's stoning him or threatening to kill him or kicking him out of a city. And now here he is, a prisoner in a small apartment, chained to a Roman soldier. They even had to provide for their own well-being there. That's part of what that gift, I'm sure, went to. Is when you're a soldier, the state doesn't take care of you. Your family had better provide support for you while you're imprisoned. And so I'm sure that his diet was not much. And if you understand the nature of being in prison like that, I don't know about you, but I go, how in the world could he be content in those situations, with those circumstances? But Paul, he says, I have learned to be content with whatever I have. You see, that's the nature of contentment. Contentment means that I'm finding satisfaction from this, whatever I have, And I don't need anything from the outside to find satisfaction. And so contentment it's truly unconnected from our circumstances. It's not based on my material possessions. It's not based on my life's circumstance or where I'm going or my life. I don't find contentment necessarily in who I'm with. I mean, I find contentment in who I'm with. I don't need anyone else, is what I should say. My contentment doesn't rise and fall based upon my circumstances or my possessions. I kind of like to think of it as just on an even keel, just kind of right there. Not real high, not real low, but I'm happy with what I got and where I'm at. Paul says in verse 12, he's content on almost nothing or with everything. You see, Paul, during his life, he had experienced both ends of the spectrum here. We didn't get into it a whole lot at the very beginning of the book of Philippians, but Paul was actually living in Philippi with one of the believers. Him and Paul and his group had actually been hosted by a very rich woman by the name of Lydia. She had a home there in Philippi, and that's where Paul lived. I'm sure she had servants. I'm sure he had his own little guest house out back, probably by the pool. Maybe he had his own cabana boy. Well, God, where are you guys at this morning? That's funny right there. But Paul's saying, I've lived with abundance. And he can think back to his life before he met Jesus. He can think back to all the good things that he had while he was living in Jerusalem. He had a home, and he probably never worried about where his next meal was going to come from. And so Paul's saying, I know what it's like to live with everything. I've lived with abundance. During my time with the Pharisee, my time living with Lydia, I know what it means to live with abundance. I've been there. But I've also know what it's like to live with nothing. Of course, right now I'm in prison. There's been times that I've been shipwrecked while I've been traveling. There's been times that I've been thrown out of a city and beaten. There's been times that I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. I've been on both ends of the spectrum. You see, and for us to truly understand what it means, what commitment looks like and what commitment means, and truly for us to learn commitment, we have to experience both ends of that spectrum. We have to understand that there's times in our life that we will experience prosperity. And I'm not talking about where you find yourself ultra rich. I'm talking about those times when you have what you need and that there's no anxiety about what lies ahead tomorrow. Or there's times that we should experience poverty, where we actually see what everybody else has and envy that and covet that, or find that we need something that we don't have the material resources to possess. So Paul says, for contentment, it is learned. I have to go through that process. I have to experience both ends of it. And so when you learn something, whenever I went to school, I had to learn algebra. I did not come out of the womb knowing algebra. I had to learn it. That means that it wasn't natural for me. I had to gain some knowledge there. And so he's saying contentment is not natural for human beings. But you know what is natural? It's point 2. Discontentment comes naturally. As human beings, we know we don't even have to be taught how to be discontent. We obviously possess a natural inclination towards discontentment. All you have to do is go right back there to Genesis chapter 3, read the story of Adam and Eve, and you will see discontentment. They have everything they want in that garden. And God tells them, do not eat this one thing. Everything else you see, as far as the eye can see, it's yours. You can have whatever you want. But that tree right there, there's fruit on it. Don't eat that fruit. And discontentment settled in. And Eve still wanted the forbidden fruit, and her and Adam took it. They had everything. Discontentment comes to us so easily. It's a lot like my yard, if you will. I have no problem whatsoever growing weeds. I mean, my whole yard, I don't even think there is any grass in my yard. It's just weeds. I am the world's leading expert on growing weeds. And here's my secret. Don't do anything. If you don't do anything, weeds will appear. Those people, those of you that have those nice, full, green, lush lawns that just makes you want to take your shoes off and go out there barefooted and walk around, those things don't come naturally. If you've got a yard like that, you can attest that it took a lot of work and care and cultivation to have those nice green grass lawns. And so that's what contentment looks like. It takes care and it takes cultivation. Discontentment is like a weed. You don't have to do anything and you'll find yourself discontent. It doesn't need care, cultivating. You just sit back and watch the weeds pop up. And that's what will happen in your life. Just sit back, don't do anything, don't try to work, don't try to learn contentment. Just sit back and be yourself and watch how envy seeps in your life. Because what we do naturally, we don't have, this isn't taught. Nobody sets us down and says you have to do X, Y, and Z to accomplish this. But just as we go through life, naturally, we compare ourselves to other people. We become aware of things that we don't have that we should have. Apple has made billions and billions and billions of dollars, if not trillions of dollars, playing this card right here. Oh, you've got the iPhone 6. You need the iPhone 7. You know, I think I told you several years ago, there goes my water. I think I told you several years ago that I had an iPhone 6. I did I've done 2 or 3 of these sermons on contentment. But back then I had an iPhone 6, and I was telling you that the iPhone 10 had just come out, and, you know, for a techie like me, I'm 4 generations behind. And every time I turn around, there's a commercial for the iPhone 10. Man, I got to have one of them iPhone 10s. My life would be so much better if I had an iPhone 10. Well, I didn't get an iPhone 10, but I did get, the next year I got an iPhone 11. And so, one day, those weeds had gotten awful tall in my yard, and I had bought me a new lawnmower too. So I was going to take my new lawnmower and cut them weeds that I didn't do anything to gain them. And I went out there and I was going to mow them down. So I got my new iPhone 11 because I like to listen to music while I'm doing it. So I got my little iPhone 11 and my new mower's got a cup holder in it. Man, I am uptown. Man. So I put that iPhone right there in that cup holder, and I had my Bluetooth speakers in, my earbuds, and I'm rocking. I don't even know what was on there, man. I was going at it. And I had that mower. I don't know how fast I was going, but I was just an orange blur down that. I mean, all the neighbors would stop as they'd drive by and just watch. And I'd just wave like I had good sense. When I got down there, I don't do nothing to my yard, so it's rough too. If you've ever had a yard full of weeds, you know how rough it is, okay? Well, I got going 100 miles an hour on that mower. Boom, boom, boom. It just started doing this because it's just really bumpy, and I got moles. We have a colony of moles too. So, but anyway, got down there and I heard a boom. And I stopped immediately. I thought I'd hit something or dropped a gear. I don't know what happened. But I noticed my music had stopped. And I looked down and I looked back, and in a little pile, it was just smoldering. There was smoke coming off. It was my iPhone 11. You know, today, I see the commercials for the iPhone 13. I'm looking at that bad boy. But you know, I found myself, I wasn't content with what I had. You know, there's a large portion of the world that doesn't even have an iPhone 6. And poor souls probably got a flip phone. But that's what happens. Discontentment convinces us that we need something. And when we allow discontentment to have a foothold in our life, it absolutely suffocates gratitude. We become so mired like a muddy bog, just get mired in our discontent, and we completely miss the blessings that the Lord has given us. And as I become aware of what I don't have or what you have and I need, as I become aware of those things, what happens is that discontentment sets in and it produces envy and bitterness and resentment and hatred. I hate you for having an iPhone 11. I've got this old iPhone 6. And you see, it will motivate us. If you're not cautious, you will trade tomorrow's best for today's desire if you're not cautious. Your discontentment will cause you to sell tomorrow in order to gain what you think is necessary for today. You know, it's called, I want more. You know the problem with wanting more, don't you? When you want more, it will eventually lead to fatigue. Why, you say? Well, because as you pursue more, life gets exhausting. God actually, in the Scriptures, calls it foolishness. Proverbs 23, he says, don't wear yourself out to become rich. When you become discontent and you find something that you want and you begin to try to work towards that to gain that, fatigue will set in. Like the fisherman that was fishing one day, and after he caught his limit, he stopped and was there on the edge of the dock, and he was playing with his son. The businessman comes by and says, why did you stop? There's plenty more fish out there. You could get more and more fish and bring it back in and you could sell it. And the fisherman said, well, why would I want to do that? And he said, man, think about the market and the profit and all the money you could make. Think about how you could have this, a great life. The guy stopped playing with his son. He turned around and said, I already have a great life. Didn't want to work towards this more. It doesn't necessarily provide what it says it's selling. Another thing, the problem of wanting more, it leads to greater expenses. You ever notice that when you get something new, that thing has to be maintained? The more you acquire, the more it costs to maintain those things that you acquire. You know, one of the things I'd love to have like one of those little outhouses behind my house so I could park my mower in it. That's a first world problem, ain't it? My mower sits out in the rain. But you know what? If I ever got that little cabana out there, put my little mower in there, wouldn't be a year or two before I'd have to paint it, right? And then I'd be mad all over because I was having to paint something. The more you get, the more you have to take care of it. Ecclesiastes 5:11 says, the more you have, the more people come to you to help you spend it. Ain't that true? Can you imagine being like an NBA star and signing a contract for $30 million? That old boy that you went to kindergarten with, he'd be on the phone the next day. Hey, you remember me? I got a little problem. I could use about $100,000. It's a good thing I ain't rich. I don't want all them people calling me. They know, hey, no sense in calling him. He ain't got nothing. Another thing about wanting more, when you want more, it creates more anxiety in your life. It causes you to care less about the people in your life and care more about gaining this thing that you are convinced that you need. And so I lose more sleep because I work longer hours, or I'm worried about it more. It's just bigger problems. That's what the problem of wanting more is bigger problems. Ecclesiastes 5 says workers may or may not have enough to eat, but at least they can get a good night's sleep. I kind of like that one, right? If you find yourself tossing and turning and worrying, trying to strive for more, that's one of them problems of more anxiety. Also leads to more conflict. You know, more fatigue, greater expenses, more anxiety, more conflict. Proverbs 15 says, those who always want more bring ruin to their households. You know what happens when you get what you want, when you want that more and you get it? All of a sudden your kids go off the beaten path. You find yourself fighting with your wife all the time. You got more and you're fighting over more, and who's going to take more and how are we going to get more, and just more conflict. You see more broken homes whenever someone wins the lottery than not, right? They got more, and it shattered everything that they held dear. 1 Timothy says, people who long to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into ruin and destruction. That's a problem with more. Last problem with more, you think you're going to be more satisfied, but you're actually more dissatisfied. I mean, I told you I've got the 11, right? That iPhone 11. Yeah. I'm dissatisfied with it. I need a 13 now is what I need. Just, you find yourself that whatever you think that you need that more, when you get it, you're bored with it. I can't tell you the number of times I've convinced myself that I need something, and I got it, and then I never did nothing with it. I'm bored with it now. I got to get something different. We are constantly addicted to upgrades, aren't we? I mean, if there's anybody, I'm a self-avowed geek. Anybody can convince themselves they need an upgrade, it's me. Have you ever heard of the FOMO? F-O-M-O, the fear of missing out? I mean, that's a real thing. Worried about, hey, where am I going to get this? And what if I don't get a 13? I'm going to miss out. Verizon, AT&T, Apple, T-Mobile, all of these people have made trillions capitalizing on our fear of missing out, our addiction to upgrades. You probably couldn't tell one from the other. I think I've told you this story before. William Randolph Hearst was a wealthy newspaper publicist, and he was one of the richest men in America. And he loved art, and he had a really, really big art collection. He had dedicated rooms to his art collection. And he had so much art, he sold most of it off and still had enough to leave his castle. He had a castle, yeah. So he had this castle, and he turned it into a museum for his art, even after he'd sold most of it off. But there was one time that William Randolph Hearst learned about a piece of artwork. And man, he loved this piece of artwork, and he was determined to have it. And guys like that, when they want something, they get it, right? They'll move heaven and earth. And so he hired an agent, and he sent this agent abroad. And he said, go find me this art treasure. And well, the agent was gone several months. William Randolph Hearst hadn't heard from him. He's wondering what's going on. But after months of investigating, the agent reported that the treasure had been found. William Randolph Hearst celebrated. He's like, yes! The agent said, here's the best part. It's not going to cost you a dime to get it. How come the rich always get free stuff? That's a side note. So Randolph Hearst said, that's awesome. You found the art. I need it. I want it. Not going to cost me anything? The agent said, yeah, you already own it. It's already in your collection. Hearst sent some of his men out, and sure enough, there in one of his warehouses was this piece of art. And he just wanted more. He saw it and he wanted it. We can get so much stuff that we forget what we even have. First world problems, right? It's what happens with more, needing more, being discontent. The desire for acquiring more can sometimes blind us to what we already possess. I was coming to work this morning, and just right up here, you ever see these little cattle up here in the corner? I kind of like checking them dudes out whenever I come by. One of them, he had stuck his head plumb out through the fence and was reaching down in there in that ditch. They were trying to eat some of that grass. I wanted to stop and say, turn around and look, there's a whole field behind you of the same grass, and you ain't got to stretch out like that. You don't got to go through that barbed wire and scratch your back. Why do they do that? You know why? Because what we've convinced ourselves is what is on the other side will satisfy us more. We convince ourselves that if I can just get this, I'll be satisfied. The truth is this. There is a hole within you. It will never be satisfied with anything on this planet outside of a personal relationship with Jesus. You can try to fill it with new lawnmowers and iPhones and grass on the other side of the fence, more works of art. This is number 3. Christ is the true source of contentment. Paul's not saying here, I've learned to make do. He's not saying, I've learned to endure how to get through this. He's saying, I'm currently satisfied. It's not, I'm just gritting my teeth and getting through it. He's saying, I'm satisfied. I'm content. I have enough. I have no other wants or needs. And he's saying this at the very end of this. He's saying, no matter what I have, whether it's a lot or little, I'm not worried about that. That doesn't determine my level of satisfaction, because of all of these things, Christ is even better. I have something that's even better than the things of the world. He says, I know what God's plan for my life is. I'm convicted to live it out well. And I believe that God's peace, it will be greater than any of the problems that I have in my life. And I cherish that. And it satisfies me. And it puts me in a place where I don't have to look outside of my current situation and circumstances and long for something that I don't have. He says, my contentment's not based on my physical needs. It's not based on my financial circumstances. When I'm rich, everything that I have is held with an open hand. He can take them away at His leisure. And you know what? I'm still okay with that. If the Lord takes my little orange mower away, I'm still okay with that. But as long as I have them, as long as I have these things of finding myself in prosperity, as long as I have them, I'm going to use these resources to push the kingdom ahead, because Christ is the only thing that I'm concerned about. I'm thankful for what the Lord has provided me, but I would be joyful even if I didn't have them. If I do have them, I'm going to push forward using them for His greater glory. And He's also saying, when I'm poor, I'm not sitting around and worrying about these empty hands. I'm going to trust that He'll fill them up. I'm going to trust Him to provide for whatever I need. I'm not going to give in to despair. I'm not going to be concerned about whether I'm loved or not, or whether I'm not going to be concerned about the times that I'm healthy or sick. I'm going to live for the Lord regardless, even if I got empty hands. At some point, if I have a need, the Lord will provide for it. And if He provides for it and then just chooses to take it away, I'm good with that too. That's what contentment looks like, because deep down He knows that Christ is in full control of everything. And when Christ is in full control of everything and we don't worry about anything, that produces real joy. Joy, the element of joy is sucked out of us when we look around and see things that we don't have. That's discontentment. But when we know that Christ is in full control, it's almost like I know that I can relax. I know that I can sit back and just kind of breathe a deep sigh of relief, because I know that God knows what I need and that He will provide for that need according to His riches at exactly the perfect timing that I need it. Sometimes the Lord may know what you need, may agree with you about what you need, but maybe He thinks that you need it 2 years later, and you think you need it right now. And so you work and you toil to get it, and the Lord's just saying, pause. Take it slow. Enjoy the ride. I've got some things I need to teach you before I allow you to have that. But no, we got to have it right now. You know, I'm the smartest man in the room. I deserve this. I'm working harder than anyone else. God's saying, that's the plan. I'm going to give it to you. Just slow down. Allow me to work through the process. Allow me to give it to you in my timing, not yours. I know what's best. God's saying, I see the big picture. I'm not disputing. God's saying, I don't dispute that you need this or you deserve this or that this is a want and I want to give you good gifts. He's saying, allow me to do it within my perfect timing. You know, for me, as I think about my life and I look at what lies before me, I have to remind myself of those things, because when I do, it removes the pressure that I feel to exert the energy necessary to accomplish these things. Does that make sense? I mean, when we sense this discontentment, we will exert a lot of energy and make a lot of enemies along the way as we do what we think was right in order to acquire those things and improve my station and provide for my family. The Lord's just saying, pause, slow down, take a step back, get your hands off the steering wheel, allow me to be the one to provide in my timing. And I know a lot of y'all are saying, but I don't know how long I got. I got to get her now. I could die tomorrow. You know, you're not going to need an iPhone in heaven. You don't need one of them fast orange racers either in heaven. Because in heaven, you won't care what you got. Secret to finding contentment, stop comparing yourself with other people. That's a loser all the way around. Comparison only leads to envy, or it leads to pride if you got more than the other person, you know. But envy drives us to acquire, and there's no win in comparison. So I love this quote, learn to admire without having to acquire. Another thing, I won't go into this, but when you see someone else possessing something or being given something, do you envy them for that or do you celebrate with them for that? It says about who you are. It says a lot about your character. I'm trying to learn that. I don't have it worked out. I'm not standing here saying, be more like me. I'm saying, I'm jacked up in this too. Second thing, enjoy what you have. If you don't have time to enjoy what you have, you didn't need it in the first place, right? Take a step back. Look at the bounty the Lord has put in front of you. Yeah, it may not be as next as the next guy, but you know what? I'm convinced that if you enjoy what you have and you celebrate that and thank God for that, eventually He'll give you more. As long as you're using it for His benefit and His kingdom. Ecclesiastes says God gives some people the ability to enjoy the wealth and property He gives them, as well as the ability to accept their state in life and enjoy their work. He also says it's better to enjoy what we have than to always want something else because that makes more sense, no more sense than chasing the wind. Pursuing the things of this world or your desires, he said that's about as smart as trying to run down and gather the wind. Didn't Garth Brooks have a song about roping the wind or something? It's kind of that same idea. Shows how much I know about music, don't it? Last thing, life's not about stuff. It's not. And so don't get possessed by your possessions. Don't play the when I have this, I'll be happy. Whenever I get this new boat, whenever I'm able to trade cars, I'll be happy. Or whenever I'm able to upgrade my kitchen, I'll be happy. Jesus said in Luke 12, watch out and guard yourself from every kind of greed, because your true life is not made up of the things you own, no matter how rich you may be. Before I finish in prayer, I just want to look at verse 13 one last time. It says, for I can do everything through Christ who gives me the strength. You know, that is one of the most misquoted verses in all of Scripture. I mean, bumper stickers. I've seen people with tattoos, you know, across their back. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. You got the coffee mug, right? I remember back in the late 2000s, Tim Tebow used to wear eye black, and it'd be Philippians 4:13 on his eye black. And I'm just going, I don't think that verse means what you think it means. It doesn't mean I can do anything when God gives me strength. That's not what it means. You have to read that verse in context. What was he just talking about? Being content. Being content in every circumstance of life. That's what he was talking about. And then the next sentence just says, I can do these things. That means I can find contentment in life. I can do this impossible thing of abandoning discontentment and stepping into contentment. And how can I do that? Because God will give me the strength. He says, I can find contentment and joy in every circumstance of life because of God's strength. I'm not preoccupied with my circumstances. I am preoccupied with Jesus. And as long as He gives me strength, whenever my eyes start to wander and I like the shinies, and I start to feel that little thing in my gut saying, you need that, go get that, your life isn't complete without that, I know that I can endure another day because He gives me strength. And Paul says, I know that my relationship with Christ will enable me to find satisfaction no matter where I'm at, who I'm with, my circumstances of life, how little I have, how much I have. Christ is enough. And so I'll just leave you with that. Contentment, finding someone who's truly content in life, that's super uncommon. Contentment is a rare jewel of immense personal value. Because when you're content, you're flexible. When you're content, you can face any challenge with confidence because your life is like adaptable. You just kind of go with the flow, right? I mean, if you get hit on this side, you kind of do one of these, and you're just like, we're still going forward. The roller coaster of life, those highs and lows, even in those highs and lows, it doesn't take those situations away from you, but it says when you experience that, you'll find complete satisfaction in that. Because Jesus is the sole source, and the only thing that determines my satisfaction, my contentment in life is Him. So what about you? Easy question. Today, tomorrow, this afternoon, tonight, tomorrow. If everything is stripped away from you, everything that you own, take inventory, think about it, all the relationships you enjoy, all the material goods, your shelter, your job, your kids, your car, the food that's in your pantry, if everything is stripped away from you this afternoon, would Christ still be enough? Let's pray. Father, we give you great glory, give you great honor. Everything that we need was given to us at the cross. And Lord, forgive us for when we chase after the wind. Lord, forgive us when we make idols of things and we convince ourselves that it would make our life better, it would make our life easier. Lord, we're thankful for the things we have. We recognize, Father, I recognize that I have more than 99% of the world. And I would ask you that you forgive me for the times that I desire and chase after and plan and scheme to get things. Lord, just remind me that I don't need those things to exist, that I'm loved by you, and that if you want me to have them, that you'll provide those for me. And Lord, then I can sit back, I can relax, and the anxiety just kind of ebbs away when I don't have to worry about who holds tomorrow because you already got it. We ask all of this in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Hi, thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more content like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure to click the little bell to be notified every time we upload a new video. You see, our goal here at Arnhart is to make biblical, God-centered teaching available for everyone, regardless if they're able to be in person with us or not. If you'd like to join us live, go over to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Arnhart Baptist Church and join us for service, Sundays at 10:45 a.m. If you'd like more information about our church, visit our website at arnhart.org. As always, we love you and hope to see you next week.